Patsy, what are we talking about today?
Yes, so we're talking about Absolute Wonder Woman #1, written by Kelly Thompson, art by Hayden Sherman. So this Absolute series for Wonder Woman, it's a reimagining. It's a kind of a what if short run, like the other Absolute stories. And this one's reimagining Diana and her origin story as being raised by Cersei in Hell. She's not allowed to be an Amazon, basically, is the sort of thing. So the Amazons, I guess, revolted against the gods, and a very cringe Apollo banishes baby Diana to hell and has her raised by Cersei, who is a my understanding is that she's traditionally an antagonist in the Wonder Woman universe, and so that's different. And then basically we get to see what it looks like for her to be raised as an outsider, to not able to know her own past or her people, but raised to be a strong, I guess, like a witch warrior type figure. And then she's unleashed back to, I think this is Earth. I We have no reason to think it isn't Earth, I guess, to save it from a crazy cosmic monster, and a lot of epic fight scenes ensue.
Yeah, so this comic is can literally go to hell, I guess how's that for a hot take?
Oh my goodness!
I can't- I couldn't
Tell us how
resist.
you really feel.
Yeah, I don't even know if I feel that strongly, but it's just the setup is there. You tee it up. I just kind of have to drop that one, right? So
Going to hell isn't
I
so
was
bad though in this comic. That's the worst part of it.
right. I was also like,
She like it,
I was also toying with what do you think about Diana being a total witch? So I think Go to Hell is one out as the hot take for this one. But that's basically the main pitch here. And it's the witch angle is something that I think I think I'd like to unpack a little
Mm,
bit. But at the end of the day, I'm curious, and we can compare this with Absolute Superman, Absolute Batman for reference, right? But each of those books is trying to do something very different with the character, and also preserve elements of the character that are the same. So the question that I've got, and
mhm.
I still don't know if I have the answer to this, is this comic actually doing anything different? And in it, on the surface, it sort of is, but because it's like, oh well, as opposed to being on Paradise Island or Themyscira, right? But it was originally called Paradise Island, which she was originally raised in a utopia, feminist utopia, and so it's like, what's the opposite of paradise? Well, it's got to be hell, right? So like they're doing the opposite of that. But as well, Red just mentioned, hell doesn't seem to be that bad. So if if uh if hell isn't bad, then have you actually changed anything about the character? Because you're still raising her to be a strong, independent woman, who's flying in the face of the masculine patriarchy gods, which is again goes all the way straight back to Marston's envisioning of the character. He set it up as a dichotomy between Aphrodite and Ares, later Mars. Here we've got Apollo, who's like, women, I'm going to ban you from even saying your own name, and they even scribble it over whenever Cersei tries to say
Yeah,
it in
because words
hell.
are power.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Are you're Twitless? You're telling us that you don't see what they're doing here. Like you don't get that hell is a metaphor for the feminist struggle. Like I don't understand.
No, I get it. What I'm saying is that I don't. I think the way it was portrayed in the comic seemed a
Yeah.
little anemic, because it was like, because
Mm.
they just have like a house, and they just kind of they have books, and they do their little feminist
Yeah, they're just
talking.
lonely. Yeah.
They
it's
they
like
do,
Dagobah, like it's comfy
yeah.
there.
The,
Yeah.
the only way you know it's hell is because there's like a red filter on it. That's my point. Is like, if it were
Okay.
to be, if it were truly hell, like I feel like, and I think Hayden is trying to impart this. I think part of the issue might be Kelly Thompson's writing, because feminist writing always struggles with this, right? Because to show her truly struggling would be to show that she really has to work or earn, and I don't know if the book does enough to show her earning it. and that's partly reflected in how hell just seems kind of cozy with a red filter on it. Whereas like hell should be torturous, right? It should be like agony. I'm in hell. This is like absolutely hellish. And I feel like it wants to channel the aesthetic of her being edgy. I'm from hell, so I have tattoos. I'm from hell, so I'm into witchcraft and I do witch circles with my adopted mother. But it's the hell is more metaphorical than it is literal, and it needs to be literal in order to sell what hell is in order for the
But
story to work properly.
but do you really need your protagonist to struggle? Don't they just need to uh find out their true name, you know? They just have to grow in affirmation with
And
their
say the
mentor
word
figure.
Amazon.
Yeah.
See, that's what I'm saying. That's the issue, though. Because here's the thing:
Yeah.
if you're trying to twist on Wonder Woman, right? Wonder Woman came from Paradise Island, where everyone was super affirming, and they had their kind of lesbianic circles of female empowerment, and they played bullets and bracelets so that one of them could go and be the
Okay.
champion of
I
woman
see what you're
man's
saying.
world. And I'm
Yeah.
saying that in this version, it doesn't seem to be
Mm.
that different, except for a man told them to go there. Um,
Mm.
so that's
Mhm.
right, like because like all the images we see, right? Here's the evil demon snake that's coming at her, and she just kind of like chucks it away, and then here comes a little baby dragon, and she makes it into a pet, and it's like, so is hell actually bad? It just looks like it's just colored differently.
It's
Um,
it's boring, and there's like little icky things crawling around that she makes her into her little playmates.
yeah.
And it's got a mommy Yoda there waiting for her to like cook and tuck her in to her little cave bunk. Um, but yeah, it's actually a little pleasant.
That's my point. Is that if it's not unpleasant enough, then have you actually done anything different than Wonder Woman's original take? And or have you actually twisted it enough? Because I feel like with Absolute Batman and Absolute Superman, they really are trying to take these characters out of their comfort zones, right? So
Mm.
Batman's taken out of wealth. He's taken out of his and he's given a slight comfort zone because he still has a mom, but like a lot of his other comforts he normally has as Bruce Wayne, as we know him, are kind of removed. And so we have to see him kind of struggle against that. A lot of Superman's comforts of being with Ma and Pa Kent completely gone. And so he still has there's still a core to him that still wants to do good, but he's been removed from his comfortable environments. And I feel like Wonder Woman was taken out of her comfortable environment in Paradise Island, and she was put into an almost only just a slightly less positive environment, even though it's supposed to be hell. And I guess that's my question: is that have you done enough to actually unsettle and put her out of her comfort zone? And
Well,
obviously,
yeah.
putting her in hell should be that. I just don't know if it was delivered, if the execution met the pitch. I could be wrong. So, what do you guys think?
Uh, well, at this point, after reading enough of this type of content from mainstream comics, I I'm of the impression I almost wanna say, are we even using the right yardstick to evaluate what it's trying to do? Because this is a tried and true story trope to approach a female protagonist and not have her struggle. Like, so we could just say it's a boring trope at this point, but it's so well established. It has so many fixtures and details and legacy ways of doing it and innovative ways of doing it that it's almost as fleshed out as the the hero's journey that you described, you know? And when I look at this stuff now, I just think, well, I don't think it's doing it. It's clearly not written for me, and it's clearly uh, it might be just not successfully working within its own expectations of like that heroine's story where the female doesn't have anything other than an affirmation journey where she just kind of centers herself
You know what's
alongside
kind of
the other women, you know? Because I'm so used to that now. Like we see that, like that's my criticism of the Penguin TV show. It's everywhere. It's so well established. It's just not. It's not the hero's journey, and it's not trying to be. It didn't ask me to expect that even. So now I'm just like, was this a good version of that feminist hero archetype, or is it a bad version? Because that's the only thing it's allowed to be. Do you know what
So
I mean?
that's
What do you think of
yeah,
that? That's my
no,
hot
yeah, yeah. That's it. No, that's fascinating. What do you think, Allred?
Let's take a brief pause to hear from the awesome creators joining us today and find out what cool projects they're currently working on.
Hey guys, if you love sword and sandal historical fiction with a healthy dose of ancient Roman and Egyptian fantasy mixed in, then check out Curie. We've got 450 pages printed so far, a fourth book on the way. Order your books today at curiecomic.com.
Modern day, classic superhero storytelling. Get The Adventures of Omega Girl, issues 1 through 5, now on Indie Planet.
Thank you to our awesome creators, and now back to the video.
Well, I mean, I think it's inane and contrived, and I don't understand the point of reading it, quite
I
frankly.
set them up and you knock them down, well read.
Yeah, it's just completely devoid of any logic, and
Yeah.
there's just a visceral satisfaction. There's some nice, you know, um, battle scenes and maybe some okay-ish character designs. I don't know about the whole thing of her like smearing blood on her eyes. I'm still a little torn if I think that's cool or if I think that's trite. Um,
Hmm.
I think
I'm
it
in
would
that.
work better. Honestly, it would work if they delivered on their premise better. Because if she had to like if they had taken those scenes of hell and they'd really sold how hard it was to survive. Like they didn't have a cozy little cottage. They had to constantly keep moving because they're being hunted by hellspawn. And so every ounce of meat they earned was a battle won, and every scar was a day survived. And she smears the blood on. Then now I'm like, all right, you earned it. You earned it narratively. You've earned the blood on there, and I believe it. But when it's just like and again, there's some just it's a nice sequential art couple pages with just some strips of her growing up with Cersei. So I like the
I
sequential
actually
art.
like that.
Yeah,
Yeah. About
Hayden
the
does
art.
some
Mhm.
Hayden's sequential art storytelling is pretty solid in this. And so from a
Yeah.
comic language standpoint, I have some positive things to say about the book. I really think that it's Kelly Thompson showing her limitations. And I think one thing that and those of you who've read it can in chat or otherwise can maybe comment on this. I got a very lore Olympus feel from this. I feel like Kelly Thompson might be a fan of Lore Olympus, and I feel
Mm.
like Kelly Thompson might have been trying to channel some of that. And Lore Olympus is a kind of a chick lit, kind of Tumblr
Mhm.
esque kind of approach to Greek myth. Very popular. It's
Mhm.
it's a online webtoon. It's one of their big top hits there. I think it's got millions and millions of views and followers, and it's got a print release. And so I think there might be an attempt to kind of channel that sort of some of those aesthetics here even. Um, but by doing that, right? So like when you take the Greek gods and you kind of turn them into soap opera characters in a way, I think that pulls against the attempt to make her a brutal warrior who's had to survive every day in her life. And I think that you've got uh, aspects of the story that are at cross purposes with each other.
well, no female heroine could ever become heroic without endless affirmation from her sister mother, which is, of course, you find one in every hell that they must endure as they are abandoned by men, for nondescript reasons
Yeah.
and told that they no longer have a name, which is the motivation of every, empowered woman warrior out there. So, yeah, just and actually, it's interesting you mentioned that it's Tumblr-esque because the coloring, maybe a little bit of the art comes off as Tumblr-esque.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, it's a little, is fruity, like, still a word in today's parlance? Like, it's very colorful. It's friendly, there's lots of pinks and purples.
Yeah, it's got a happy cloud aesthetic. If clouds were
Yeah,
hallucinogens,
maybe Steven Universe is in someone's wheelhouse.
right? So I don't know. I didn't see much point in going through this exercise at all of reading it. You're right, like in the Batman and Superman, Batman, they made him into an everyman. They took away the loner brooding aspects of the character. He's now Jim Bro Batman, which is fine. And then Superman is a workers' champion character. He's there to fight for the miners' rights to equal pay, which is fine. Also, at least they have an intent and they have a logical structure that they're trying to pursue. They've displaced the legacy characters into these new social settings where they want to make original commentary. I don't understand the displacement here. I don't even think this is Diana. Even though I don't think the other characters are Batman and Superman necessarily, but this is the least referential to the original character that I can possibly imagine. I mean,
Interesting. Hmm.
what is exactly Amazonian about her other than the fact that she was coddled in some bizarre Tumblr world of Dagobah and Tumblr rendition of Dagobah and decided that she was originally Amazon and came out of there to fight these, demon creatures. So I don't see any progression to her heroic incarnation, frankly. So it's odd to me that she would even embody anything about the original character.
See, what's funny about the original character is, if you want to go to Marston's Golden Age 1940s version, is that, and this might be something we get in issue 2 or 3, but the original character was set up as a foil for a romantic drama. So the first thing that Diana does, like literally, like the first thing she does in Wonder Woman, is fall in love with Steve Trevor. It's a love story. And so, which is one of the interesting ironies about Wonder Woman, is that a chunk of her early story is her uh, basically in a love triangle with herself, where she's playing Diana Prince as her secret identity, and Steve Trevor is in love with Wonder Woman, but not with her in her secret a hero or in her everyday life, and so she's jealous of her superhero heroine self.
Stop making her interesting. That's already
I'm just
80
saying that.
years old, and it sounds more interesting than
So,
us.
right. So it's what's fascinating is that without the man in that picture, the story like would be missing something, which I think you kind of see here, which again I think demonstrates the limitations of the type of feminism that Kelly Thompson is trying to embody here. And there's definitely, and one of the twists that I do think is at least interesting to talk about from a academic standpoint, perhaps, is the turn. And this is one of the things that I think actually is different. But to take the inner strength narrative of feminism, and specifically to put the witchcraft, because this is witchcraft feminism. Like that is what Kelly Thompson, that is the twist that Kelly Thompson has chosen to put on Wonder Woman, right? There's that kind of that type of witchcraft feminism that like
This is a
tries,
subspecies that we're unaware. Okay, yeah.
you know what I mean? Like where it's like it's
What's the
not just,
taxonomy on the
yeah, it's that kind of feminism that's, it's rejecting so much of masculinist or patriarchy, that it's choosing to create its own myths, right? And so like we're going to worship Hecate, we're going to worship Lilith, right? It's that kind of feminism where they seek
Mm,
they'll seek the monstrous even, right?
yeah.
Because the monstrous has been othered. This is Red's going to enjoy this,
Yeah,
this dive into feminist literary theory, but that
well,
is,
it sounds like the feminist version of the Black Israelites. As you're describing this to me.
but it's a
We
it's
was goddesses. Is
it's
that
an
what we're saying?
it's an attempt to embrace the opposite. It's a big contrarian thing. And so you get like Tiamat, the things that were considered monsters, the mother of monsters from Greek myth. And it's like, okay, well, we're gonna empathize with them. And if you get it, and again, to bring up Lore Olympus is a story about Persephone, right? She's the one who falls in love with Hades. And so again, there's this idea of like, as opposed to worshiping the sun god in stand-in, or the things that typically we would associate with good and evil, it's no, we're going to go for the opposite. We're going to find why they've been oppressed or whatever. And so there's
That's interesting.
I will at least say that
Should have led with that. This is so interesting.
here's the
You're explaining the existence of this comic.
I'm still not interested.
No, it's not.
Let me finish with this, because if you're not interested in feminism at all, I feel like Wonder Woman is never going to be your comic, because Wonder Woman was made to be at least a version of feminism. And so I've talked about this with other people who, like, for example, on Tom King's run of Wonder Woman, which is very different from this one. And so you get different types of feminism represented in each of those. But Wonder Woman from day one, and this comes straight out of the creator's mouth, I'm not just BSing here. The creator wanted to make a sort of feminist Superman character because he believed in the power of essentially BDSM dommy mommies ruling over men, and that's how we were going to get to world peace.
Right.
So you're going to get a version of if there ever was a feminist superheroine, it's Wonder Woman. So you're going to get a version of feminism regardless. I think the question for the audience is, what version of feminism are we comfortable with for this
That's
character?
much more interesting. Yeah.
And which version is Kelly Thompson pushing? And like I said, she is heavily leaning into the witchcraft version, and that's why you get Cersei, right? Cersei's the mother character. Cersei is the witch character who's usually an enemy of Wonder Woman. She's a shape. What she usually does is she turns men into pigs. That's like her big, what she's known for in many cases, turning men into animals and pigs, I think in particular. And so you have that sisterhood of the witches, and it's all, forbidden and edgy and totally not what the men want us to do. But we have the secrets of
See, you just made this run genuinely original. This does sound like there's a coherent reason for this to exist and to take Wonder Woman, right, for better or for worse, in a very different direction, distinctly different, with this new subspecies of feminism.
So my question is this: that's the attempt. My
Okay.
question here is, how well is Kelly Thompson delivering that?
That's a great question.
I think the answer to that, I think she's not delivering on it quite well yet.
It's a little thin, so yeah.
So, Red, what do you think of that? How well is she delivering on that?
Well, I mean, imbuing those theories on this series, and assuming that maybe that's the direction that the author was taking, I would say that this is like the microaggression version of an origin story, because the worst thing that happens is, again, she's abandoned in a very coddled setting, which is typical for every feminist, I suppose. Sorry, maybe that's a little too far, but
all right.
And then taking offense because she doesn't have the full capacity of her origins. She's robbed of them, essentially. So I don't know. It just doesn't seem sufficient for a heroine and for a hero's journey, particularly if she emerges from that somehow strengthened and with the fortitude to fight against oppressive forces. I just don't see where she struggled to attain that position. And I don't see where the witches' lore or retelling of their true path and histories provided that or facilitated it to give her that strength that she was yearning for. So all of that was very mildly delivered, I would say, and not worth the time to craft a story around to give this character a reimagining for their origin. For her origin. Sorry, I want to respect her pronouns. My apologies. We're going to go there with this review.
So what did you think of the giant penile monster that she's fighting with a giant penile weapon?
Is that what it was? I kept vacillating between female and male sexual organ.
Now you definitely need to show that on screen. But she fights a giant demon with a very penile looking appendage on his face, and she's using the weapon of masculinity, which is of course the sword, which is of course a symbol
sword.
Right.
But notice.
But notice that she has to discard that weapon and embrace the lasso, which is the more feminine one, because the feminine engorges and enwraps. And okay, I'm not. All my college feminism classes are coming back in. Yeah, okay.
Matsy, final take.
Yeah, so basically what we have here is something we've probably been talking about for like a decade now, is if you're going to do a feminist power fantasy, can you do that and also protect, can you tell a compelling story and also protect that female protagonist from the same sorts of slings and arrows that male protagonists successfully that people enjoy by the millions of them having to undergo and struggle through and overcome. And it there's different modes of building a origin story. You don't have to just have external hostilities. There is a mode in which you could have, an internal identity, kind of self-actualization kind of story happen. It can be done well, at least in principle. And it can be done, I think, with Wonder Woman. It sounds like that's kind of something that has to be explored. It has been explored for 80 years with the character, but this feels like it probably goes on the shelf with a lot of other attempts to make a feminist archetype look really cool, but also not do as much because we're kind of afraid of what we can throw at her, and so it's just kind of ends up being less exciting as a result. But mostly cool art. It was drawn by someone who genuinely likes to draw, which is which was a relief.
Twitless.
I think the pitch of this story would have worked with a more adept writer. Maybe Gail Simone, perhaps. I think Gail Simone might have been able to pull it off. Perhaps, maybe. There's some other writers I think who could have done it. I think Kelly Thompson is really showing her limitations. So if she wants to do better, she needs to push herself because you have some interesting ideas here, even if they're not everybody's cup of tea. There's definitely things you can do with them. I think they're just not being pushed to being done. I think we're settling for things that are more dull and boring, honestly, than what the premise is. You have Wonder Woman raised in hell. That pitch alone should sell the story. But the when you open the box and you go, oh, that's what hell is like. You're literally just taking all of the air out of the balloon. Why do that? And I think that's just chalks it up to the limitations of the writer. So I'm interested to see maybe it can improve, and maybe it can go into. I'm interested to see what happens when they put Steve Trevor in there. That'll be, I think, a real test of what
You think Steve Trevor's gonna be here?
he has to be.
How do you know she's not a lesbian? Twitless.
Well, that's the thing. When they introduce Steve, if Steve ends up just being uh, and they might even like
I think
race
we
or
already met him. I think he
they
was
might
that soldier that just kinda went,
right.
Get out of my way, grunt.
But if they they make him the supportive black boyfriend to the lesbian relationship, then we'll know what they've done with the character. Or if they just make him, I don't know, there's 100 different things they could do with him, but we'll see. I'm tangentially interested in seeing next couple issues what they can do with it, but I think they've unfortunately they're not meeting their own pitch, which is just it's a shame.
Thank you very much for checking out the video. Subscribe, like, and stay tuned for more.